little bit of a cooler day today. It's supposed to get down to 5 degrees. So I think I might fire the wood stove up tonight. I've just made it out to the bee yard today to do some assessment on my Apivar effectiveness. Right now I've had my strips in for 4 weeks, or about 28 days. And that's not a long enough treatment period to be able to tell whether or not the Apivar is effective or not. You have to wait for the 45-day full treatment to be able to find its effectiveness. But 4 weeks in, I should be finding, you know, at least 90% of the mites gone right off the start here. And then this last 2 weeks should clean up the rest of it. I can say that fairly confidently because I was talking to Derek Mickelson from our tech transfer program, the CARE-TP, and I was just reflecting a little bit about Apivar and Apivar resistance, or not resistance, but Apivar tolerance that beekeepers are talking about finding within the province, and how beekeepers are using Apivar and hearing of all these horror stories around North America, going out testing their colonies and finding mites and then panicking a little bit. So he provided me a little bit of information that was done back in 2016, the Genome Project of Canada, and they did it on 160 colonies on a sticky board count over a 6-week period. So they started with an infestation averaging 2.2% infestation, and it showed within the 45-day treatment, the first 10 days, 62% of the mites dropped. The first 31 days, they seen a mite drop of 93%. So in the first 4.5 weeks of the treatment period, you're going to see like a 90% mite drop, and then for the other 2-week period, you're going to see, you know, the remainder, like maybe let's say about 10% of the remainders drop. So you definitely have to give it its full treatment period of 45 days, if not extend a little bit further to 52 days. And the way the Apivar works, the way it's explained to me, is it's not so much the mites getting in contact with the strip itself. It's more so the strips being in contact with all the surfaces within the hive, aka the bees, and just providing that continual coverage of all those surfaces of that active product of amitraz. And by having all those surfaces with that continuous contact of that amitraz, as the mites are exposed to it, it kills them and drops them. And it's an extended period of time, 42 days, 52 days, because within that period you have, you know, brood cycles. So the mites go down and hide, then they come back up in 3 weeks and they're exposed to the Apivar. Hopefully they die. If not, they go down and come back up, boom, they're dead. So it has to be put in for 45 days. What I'm doing here is I've gone through 4 weeks, you know, roughly 28 days of treatment now. I'm expecting to see about a 93% efficacy. I'm going to shake one of the colonies that I found mites in, and I just want to see exactly where I'm at. I'm getting beekeepers across Manitoba contacting me, asking me. I'm seeing mites. I've had my treatment in for a little while. Am I seeing some tolerance? If we are seeing tolerance, if you do have the Apivar in there for, you know, extended period of time and you're not seeing that mite drop down, then maybe you need to get some help to see if there's a tolerance to that amitraz. Our this is one of the reasons why we've developed a tech transfer program. We've developed this program to be able to focus on issues exactly as beekeepers need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going into a colony, which is colony number colony number 1 that he sampled. He tagged it 1 to 10. The colony number 1 had 7 mites in a 300 bee sample, which gave me a 3.3 infestation level. And I've had that treatment in for 28 days. So 90% of those mites within that colony should be dead, right? So I should be seeing a very low level of mites in this sample I'm just about to take, which is like 1 maybe. If I'm seeing 5 up to 7, then that's telling me that my treatment's not working. And then maybe there's a tolerance issue there. As beekeepers within the province, there's beekeepers having trouble, and we might be having trouble with our mites because of tolerance to Apivar. This is one place where we can focus this program, this tech transfer program. We can, employ the lead, throw a lot of resources towards it to be able to help beekeepers determine if the mite trouble they're having within their hives is directly related to tolerance to Apivar or not. So the advice I've been given is if you have infestation within your hives that's been treated with Apivar within an extended period of time, like should be the full treatment period, but let's say you get down to the 4-week, 5-week period, if you're still seeing that 3 to 5% infestation within the colonies, then contact the program and get some tolerance testing done, because we got to know what's going on, right? There's a lot of information here that's beyond me. I'm just a farmer trying to figure things out. So if I'm finding increasing levels of mites, even though I'm doing an Apivar treatment, then I have to, as a farmer, figure out what the hell's going on, because if there's a problem, I got to implement some other method of control to make sure I don't have a problem and just take out my entire apiary. So I'm going to go through the steps here. Let's go find hive number 1. Looking for colony. There's colony number 2. Here's colony number 1. So I'm not going to get too in depth. Well, maybe I'll go down and see whereabouts they're at. I'm not expecting to see a lot of brood right about now. They're going to be a little cranky, so I'll keep my visit quite brief. My sample will be within the center of the nest, but it won't be like I'm not expecting much brood, so I won't search for brood to take the sample. I'll just take the sample from within the nest. With very little brood, I expect the mite population to be fairly dispersed throughout the hive. Box of bees. Maybe I should just take the sample from underneath. I'm going to pull a frame anyways, just out of my due diligence. These colonies are nicely fed up. That's it for feeding. We're taking the pails, we're not feeding anymore. They are ready for winter. There you go, look at that. Patch of brood. Surrounded with larvae. So they're still going. She's pushing that space back. There she is right there. She's thinned down a little bit, but she's still laying. It's all full of eggs. A patch of brood right there. I'm attempting to try to push this back so she stops laying, but looks like she wants to keep going. I guess she's going to keep going. So that is that. So she's right there. I'm going to take my sample on the other side. So I'd say about 100 bees in there, maybe a little bit more. We'll just do a little shake. These alcohol washers, they're telling you just basic information, basic levels of infestation. It's just giving you the ability to provide a metric on infestation levels. It's not, you know, there's a degree of error here. We're just doing our best to try to quantify how many mites are within the colonies, and with a certain number of mites within the colonies and with a certain test, then we can quantify that to, you know, the virus levels within the bees themselves, and then that infection on how it's going to react on the colony itself. If you're seeing like a level of 10% mites, and you see levels of virus when you're within your hives at like 75,000 copies per bee, then you can start quantifying that colony is not likely going to live, even if you can control those mites, because that virus is in there. But if you have something like 5% mites, and for some reason you have 0 deformed wing virus, maybe the colony, if you can clean up those mites, maybe it has a chance, because that infection isn't going to take them down the same as one that has an infection. Just, you know, goes towards my whole philosophy of more information you have at hand, you know, the better decisions you can make as a beekeeper, and it just helps you avoid from making those real costly assumptions. So I'm not going to do my oxalic acid treatment yet because there's still brood in there, so I'm going to wait until end of October, as close as I can get to putting them inside, because I want this colony to be as brood free as possible. If there's mites in this colony, it possibly could be underneath that capping. So for the oxalic acid vapor to work properly, I got to do it when there's no brood available. And I'm not seeing any mites in here. So with this little bit of information, this colony that held a background level of varroa mites, which showed 7 mites per sample of 300 bees. Right now, this is like a 150 bee sample. I'm not showing any mites in there. Just a stinger. So as a beekeeper, hearing of all this possible issue with tolerance, I'm doing my due diligence to check to make sure this treatment's working as it's following through. I got to give it more time, but I'm just continually monitoring to make sure I know what's going on in here at all times, so I don't, you know, all of a sudden get surprises. And that way, if there is an issue, I can pounce on it and deal with it immediately, whether it be now or, you know, now what would I do now? Maybe start my oxalic acid treatments and just start hammering it down. The way it is now, I'm not going to, because, you know, it's showing effectiveness. So I'll wait until late into the fall and just do my typical. So now is the time to know, as opposed to finding out in the spring with dead colonies.